What's up, guys? It's Andromeda. I've seen a lot of really bad DKs. I've seen a lot of really average DKs. I've seen a lot of DKs who could probably be pretty good, but just have no clue what they're doing. And it makes me sad. It makes me cringe, really, because when I see a DK that's more geared than me that does half my damage, I want to teach him, but a lot of times those guys have kind of an elitist attitude and are kind of beyond teaching, so this is more for the people who genuinely care about their class and want to improve. And this is me who genuinely cares about my class and wants to help other people improve. The builds, the guide, everything here is geared towards rating. Um, you can use this in Mythic Plus instances also. I would say, basically, if you are rating and you are struggling to hit that 75th to 80th percentile, uh, this is the guide for you. If you're doing 90th, 99th percentile, you might learn something from this, but this guide is not really meant for you. This is meant for the people who genuinely want to learn their class and want to improve. Uh, so, I mean, just kind of getting right into the core of the guide. Basically, the most important part here is like, what do I gear? A piece of gear just dropped. I don't know what I want to build. Do I go versatility? Do I go anything like that? And the answer is you want to have crit, haste, equals mastery. Your crit should be roughly about 30%. Mine here is about 27%. And my haste and my mastery are pretty much dead equal. You want your haste and your mastery to be roughly above 22 to 23%. So I'm just hitting my mark. If you're struggling to find gear that has haste on it, I would say out of all the stats, your crit is probably the most important stat because crit obviously increases the amount of damage the hit does. Your runes are still going to regenerate pretty darn quick, but having anything lower than like 20% will hurt you. So if you are struggling to get that gear, I would say get your haste up to at least 20% and then focus on the other two stats. But realistically, by the time your haste is at 20%, your crit should be right around 25 and your mastery should be right around 20 to 21% as well. So just 30% crit, haste equals mastery to 25% is your ideal stat weights. And I have some non-ideal trinkets, like I have the foci here from the raid, which is pretty good. It's your best trinket actually. And then all my gear has either crit mastery, crit haste, so on and so forth. I mean, a couple pieces have versatility on it. It's just, your tier pieces. But you don't want to be gearing versatility at all unless you're PvP. Now, talking about your spec, the spec does kind of come into play really big here. You can run Icy Talons. It increases your melee attack speed. Now, the only benefit of melee attack speed is basically the extra runic power from runic attenuation. You'll generate more runic power overall, but running Icy Talons and runic attenuation is not the most optimal build. Now, you can run it if you're feeling like you're starved for runic power, but really runic power, the only thing runic power will give you is more Breath of Sindragosa procs. You can keep it up longer, but you're not really focused on keeping your runic power up in increments of like 1 to 2. You're focused on keeping your runic power up for this build in increments of like 20 to 40. Breath of Sindragosa uses a considerable amount of runic power in order to channel it, so you want to basically maximize your runic power uptime whatever way possible. So with Murderous Efficiency, when you use your killing machine, you have a chance to gain 1 rune. This was recently buffed from 50 to 65%, so we actually get more runes overall from this ability. Horn of Winter is really great because when we start doing our rotation, it's kind of used as like an extra oomph to get more runes out of it. Towards when Hungry Rune Weapon goes down, our normal rune regeneration cycle slows down when everything kind of starts winding down from our burst. This will keep it going for like another 15 or 20 seconds, which is a considerable amount of damage, all things considered. We do want to run Hungry Rune Weapon. It's a 3-minute cooldown, so instead of only being able to use it once in the fight, you might even be able to use it sometimes like on cooldown, like upwards of 3 to 4 times the fight, depending on how long the fight goes. You get so many more runes, and also it generates runic power for you, which goes towards keeping your Breath of Sindragosa procs up. So that's a huge one. Now this one right here, this is kind of like a suboptimal talent, your level 60 tier tree. I would say if you're looking to, look for something that's CC, I would run Winter is Coming, because what you're going to be doing with Remorseless Winter, which we'll talk about on your level 90 tier tree, you'll be channeling it, and if there's ads up, basically if you stick next to him, you have your Pillar of Frost up, it's going to stun him, and that's going to kind of be like a big CC, big AoE CC. You can also run Blinding Sleet. I use this one mainly for PvP myself, but it just basically is like a Blast Wave or whatever that the mages have. And then Abomination's Might. This is good for like single target big ads. I would say this is more like a big ad Mythic Plus type cooldown. It's not necessarily the greatest. Um, Now talking about kind of what on your 75, because 75th is kind of like your more utility tree. I used to run White Walker, simply being that with White Walker you get it's kind of like a tanky CD. If you're like, oh shit, I'm in trouble, I need to get out, you have like that extra tankiness built into it, and then it has a slow built on. So this one I think is again more or less a Mythic Plus type cooldown. Permafrost here. This is a really good raid cooldown, or like a raid utility talent. Simply being, obviously you can read it when you auto attack, you gain a shield. Now the shield itself isn't that much, and it's not going to stop you from getting killed in a one-shot mechanic. But it does. It kind of. I mean, if you're worried about offsetting some of the healing from your healers, I mean, it's good at just kind of like wonky overall damage. I think on most fights, it was healing me for like 2 to 3 million worth of shielding. It doesn't actually heal you; it just gives you a shield, but it's like 2 or 3 million health in actual shielding. So I mean, it's a considerable amount. And then Volatile Shielding. Now this is the one I run. Once you become really comfortable using your AMS, you at some point will be able to figure out what abilities are magic, and what abilities your AMS does shield. And the beauty of this one is once you take magic damage with AMS up, it diverts a certain percentage, 25% of the damage that's absorbed will be directed back at a boss. So say like on Gul'dan, for example, when he does his when it does his Hellfire, or when he does Fell Efflux, or when something AoE happens like Bonds or Eyes or anything like that, that's magic damage, I can take the AMS, stand next to Gul'dan, get hit for the damage that AMS absorbs, and I do 25 back, which is like 300k. So AMS absorbs roughly about 1.2 million damage, and I can do 3 to 400k damage back to Gul'dan just on a 45-second cooldown. So it's not a lot of extra DPS, but it's something. It's like 1 to 2k DPS per second if you're using it. I mean, a lot of time, and it may not sound like a lot, but I mean that's actually a considerable amount of damage throughout a fight. I mean that's an extra 2 or 3 million damage. So it's like an extra trinket on some of these trinkets that drop from this instance. So you're basically getting a free item slot just from running this. This, to me, is your highest DPS talent on the 75th talent tree. And then for single target bosses, you want to run Gathering the Storm. And the reason for that is on this tier, when you cast your Remorseless Winter and you're using Gathering Storm, you have the damage increased by however many runes you use, and you also have the duration increase. So on your burst, when you're popping your Hungering Rune weapon, you're popping your Horn of Winter, you're popping all your damage, your Gathering Storm, your Remorseless Winter is going to get a lot of extra damage, and it's going to last as long as your Breath of Winter's up, as long as you're maintaining your runes. So, I mean, in a fight, this is probably like my number 3 ability. Whereas Frost Scythe on this tier 90 is really an AoE utility talent, and it doesn't really work well with Breath of Sindragosa because Frost Scythe itself does not generate very much runic power. So it's not a talent that I would personally take over, say, like Gathering Storm. And Runic Attenuation, again, we kind of already covered this one. Runic Attenuation is only really good with icy talents. So it's not something that I would take 100% of the time, but if, say, you're feeling starved for runic power or something like that, you might be able to try it. Just know that overall it's a net DPS loss from Gathering Storm. And then kind of without needing to say, Breath of Sindragosa is going to be your best talent here, because we have all this runic power generating talents going into feeding Breath of Sindragosa. You can run Obliteration here if you don't run Breath of Sindragosa, but if you do decide to run Obliteration, make sure that it's either on an AoE fight like Spellblade, or run Frost Scythe with Obliteration, and maybe run like Frozen Pulse. I mean, there's so many different combinations that DKs can run, but the most throughput single target DPS or even like AoE DPS is going to be the build that you see here. So, uh, I mean, let's kind of put it all together. You've seen the talents. You've heard me talk about why I take these choices. Let's kind of go over it and see kind of what we can do for boss damage. And I'm sitting right here in front of the reanimated monstrosity. So your burst comes really in two different phases. You have burst, and then you have your standard rotation. And on your burst, you're really going to open up with your Remorseless Winter. And the reason why you open up with your Remorseless Winter is you're going to be keeping it up a long time, so you might as well just start channeling it right away. That way it lasts the longest, and by the time it's done channeling, it's already off cooldown to start again. So once you do your Remorseless Winter, you're going to pop your Pillar of Frost. And again, most of you guys know Pillar of Frost increases your strength, and it also is multiplicative with your weapon. So, or not multiplicative, but additive. So with your weapon, if you get a proc from the Fallen Crusader, you're going to get 15% from that, 20% from the Pillar of Frost. You're going to have 35% strength all over the board. And, when we're talking about strength, we can't see our strength anymore in the side pane. 35% strength is huge. It's massive. So basically, we have those two procs, and all we're going to do is just Obliterate Twice. And that's just to get some Runic power. It's going to generate about 40 Runic power from us. And then we're going to pop our Empowered Rune, or our Hungering Rune weapon. Empowered Rune weapon is what the cooldown is. And then start channeling our Breath. Now, from this point, once we start using Breath, our Runic power is going to be consumed until Breath is out of Runic power. So during this, it needs to be our main goal to balance out the Runic power gain with our runes, and making sure that we use those Rime procs on cooldowns. Now, the cool set with Blood Decay, or Frost Decay's 4 set, is you have Howling Blast generates additional Runic power while Rime's active. So that means that when you get that Rime proc, that's basically the free Howling Blast, not only will, with the Legendary Helmet, if you have the Legendary Helmet, increase the amount of damage that Howling Blast deals, but it also generates 8 additional Runic power. So it's also important that when we're doing this, Runic power generates 10 Runic, or Howling Blast generates 10 Runic power. It's important to use this because now it generates 18 and does additional damage. So once we do that, say we've gone through the entire burst phase, we've used up all our runes, then we Horn of Winter. Now Horn of Winter is on a 3-second or 30-second cooldown. You gain 2 runes from it, 20 Runic power, which 20 Runic power is 1 tick of Breath of Sindragosa, and then 1 Obliterate is another tick. It's 20 Runic power. It's going to give you another tick of Breath of Sindragosa. So that one ability just kept us going for 2 seconds longer, potentially doing like 600k to 1.2 million damage more worth of damage. And then hopefully off that 1 Obliterate, we got a Rime proc. Because Obliterate has with our 4 set and our 2 set, has an increased chance to trigger Rime on top of the already existing chance to get a Rime off of Remorseless, or off a Obliterate. So once we do that, ideally we should be able to, if we're lucky, our Rune RNG is good, get a full rotation going. So let's kind of slap this all together, kind of see what it looks like in action, and go from there. So. So kind of barring the the runes ticking and all that. I mean, I hit just no potions, no food, nothing. on a single target raid dummy. And Remorseless Winter was kind of ticking on one of the other target dummies, but it was a level 110 target dummy. So let's just count it as an ad. It's not going to be doing a whole lot of damage, and that 900k to almost 1 million burst was not actually part of my main rotation. So as you can see, the rotation itself lasts for pretty darn close to about a minute on your burst. I mean, that's a considerable burst considering with this build, you're going to have burst every 3 minutes. And you want to be using, in my experience, you want to be using Breath of Sindragosa pretty darn close to Hungering Rune Weapon in terms of time for burst. But, I mean, just right there. I mean, just 900k. With my burst, I could probably, with a potion, with food, flask, fully raid everything. I'm hitting 1.2 to 1.3 million DPS on my burst consistently. And everyone can do that consistently. I'm not very high item level. I kind of have gotten some good luck on my legendaries. But, I mean, even if you're like 870, 880, with this build, you can hit 900k DPS, 800k DPS single target on your burst. And then you can ride it out and sustain probably close to 450, 500. If you're 895 item level like me, I'm sitting at 770k DPS consistently on every fight, unless it's a high mobility fight. And even then, I'm sitting pretty high DPS. So it's just a matter of kind of figuring out what works for you, when to do it. You just need to get a feel for it. Your standard rotation pretty much after that is just the same that you always have been as a Frost DK. Runic power dumps, Obliterate 2 to 3 times, Runic power dump, use your Rime on procs, Horn of Winter is up. Make sure that you use all your runes and your Runic power dump before using your Horn of Winter, because you're going to get 20 Runic power from that, 2 runes, you're going to Obliterate once, you're going to Rime once, you're going to get a total of 60 Runic power just from one Howling Blast. So if you're full, you're wasting out 2 additional Frost Strikes. And maybe 1 or 2 additional Rimes from those Frost Strikes. So it's just a matter of kind of gaming your RNG correctly and just playing your class around your procs. The biggest thing is during your standard rotation, you need to make sure that you're dumping your Runic power. Because if you're not dumping your Runic power, then you are missing out on so many potential Rime procs, and you're not doing your damage any justice. So, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them at the bottom. If you have any comments, if you like the guide, anything like that, feel free to thumb up, subscribe, do whatever you need to do, because it helps me out. I just, I want to put this out there because of all the DKs that I've seen have just not been playing their class right. And I know that DKs are kind of with all the changes that have going on. There are some changes to them that some people haven't gotten used to. The old Master Frost or Haste Frost builds are not quite the same thing. I mean, we used to have 2-hand Frost, obviously. So if you're coming back to WoW or you're having a hard time, kind of keeping up with some of the changes that have been happening with DKs, I mean, this is what I can come up with the quickest and easiest semi-comprehensive build for a DK, just to show you how effective this build is, what you can do with this build. So, yeah, hope you guys liked it. See you next time.